welcome back, everyone, to another incredible episode of Chat with Dan here for today on the show. What can I say? I'm already speechless, and we haven't even started yet. We're having like the most badass way to start up the weekend because we have on the show the incredible, the amazing, the badass, the superstar, the legendary, the one and only Madison. Madison, how are you today?
Hi guys, I am great. I'm happy that it's finally beautiful weather outside, so I've just been enjoying my day.
There you go.
Outside.
There you go. And what better way to have as I was saying before, a beautiful badass day than to be chatting with someone as badass as you. You know what I mean?
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Now, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, follow. It helps a lot. But also, on the description below, you're going to find all of Madison's social media. Let's follow her. Let's find out why she's super badass. And without further more, let's jump in. So I want to start this whole conversation by, throwing out the first question, which is, what was that moment that hit you? You know what? This is it. This is going to be my passion now. This is what I'm meant to do now, let's say.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like this is a question that every time I'm in an acting class, this is the question that they ask you as like the icebreaker. So I've talked about this a lot. And my go-to is always when I first started out in my career, like very early on, I was doing extra work to, pay the bills, get more familiar with what a set is like, meet some people, network, and just understand the whole industry as a whole while being on set. And my first ever extra gig was on The Society, which was a Netflix show that unfortunately got canceled after the first season. It was like around COVID that they were going to do the second season. So that kind of threw a wrench in everything and they didn't get to renew. But that set was amazing. Even when I was in the makeup and hair chair, I was talking to the hair and makeup artist and she was like, "Oh, so are you an actor? Like, what are you doing here? Like, what brought you to be an extra?" And I started out modeling, so I met a lot of my acting friends who were also models, and they were kind of the ones who were like, "Okay, if you really want to get into the acting business, you should try extra work just so you can see what it's like on set, see if it's something you're interested in, and there you can meet new people." And that's kind of what I did. So I told the makeup artist that, and she was like, "So do you know about all of these sites like Actors Access and casting networks and Backstage and all of these like mailing lists that you can be on for all these different casting directors?" So that makeup artist, I wish that I knew who it was to this day because she seriously gave me all of the insight that I needed to kind of start my journey. So she told me all about the casting sites and the mailing lists. So I joined those immediately, same day. And yeah, all the friends that I made there were amazing. But I just remember sitting there watching the cast practice before the cameras were rolling and even as the cameras were rolling. And the cast on that show they were my age. So it was all a bunch of young adults. It was a young adult show. So just seeing them up there, I was looking and I was just like, I want to be up there. I don't want to be back here as like being seen as like a little pea in the back. I want to be there. I want to be doing what they're doing. I want to be saying lines. And it really just made me fall in love with being on set and made me even more intrigued about the industry because like I said, I kind of started out in the modeling world. So that gig really jump-started my love for the industry and the business. And then from there, I got into the craft and started taking classes. And ever since then, I've been in classes almost weekly at this point. So I have a lot of tools in my belt and a lot of training under my belt as well.
There you go. I love it. Perfect start. Yeah. And tell me, once you decided this is going to be my passion from now on, this is my journey, what were some of those first challenges that you encountered as you were making those first steps, let's say?
First challenges definitely was the cost, I would say. That's something that no one really talks about a lot at the beginning of your career, is you really have to invest a lot of money into it. That is going to, get you to levels that you can't really get without putting in the money. It's like you're your own business. And if you're making a startup, you're going to have to invest a bunch of money into your startup for it to make money. It's the same thing with you. You have to invest in those websites that I was talking about, casting networks, Actors Access, Backstage. You have to invest in headshots. You have to invest in classes, which are super expensive. So I think that was my first challenge, is kind of balancing that with also like working a full-time job and being in college at the same time. So working, college, pursuing acting, spending money on classes. Because when I did start out, I was going into my freshman year. So it was, yeah, it was the cost was a lot. But I'm good now managing it all, working jobs to make it work, having my survival jobs.
Totally. You know, that's just the way it is, right? I mean, there was a time in which I was thinking that in order for you to kind of follow your dreams, you will have to take like this leap of faith, let's say, you know. But
Definitely.
once I did try that, then I was like, no, this is not how you should, like, you know, this is not how you're supposed to do stuff, you know, because it's true. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to find a place in which you can live. You need food, you need everything, like the basic services. And in order for you to
Yeah.
achieve that, sometimes you'll have to get a job, which that's fine as long as you're kind of focused to be like, okay, so this is what gets me my income, but with that, I can use it to keep growing, to keep like working on my journey, which I sometimes think that people might get confused with that, and they think that if they find a job is like quitting your dreams, which is not like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not like that. Unfortunately, when you're starting out in this business, you do have to find a job that's sustainable in order for you to still be pursuing this. And it's not it not everybody has the luxury of maybe, being born into this business or being born into a lot of money. So most of the time you do have to find that survival job that will be flexible enough for you to pursue your acting career. And my tip is definitely don't tell your employer that you're also an actor unless you're working in the industry. Like my jobs now, I'm lucky enough that all of my coworkers and my bosses are also actors. So, and that's like my day job, not even my acting job. So I feel grateful for that. So I have a good flexible job, but starting out, it was not easy because I couldn't tell my employers and I would be taking off all these days if I booked something, but it's just what you got to do.
And tell me, do you remember like the feeling of your first audition? Was it like terrifying, exciting, or you know what, just a complete disaster with a lesson that you'll never forget, basically?
So I feel like I have two different first auditions because I have a first self-tape audition and then I have a first in-person audition, and both of them were definitely completely different experiences. My first self-tape audition I did at college in my dorm room, and my reader was my roommate's boyfriend. Neither had acting experience, like neither my roommate or her boyfriend at the time, but I was like, I need a male reader because this is a male character. And it was my first ever time working with any sort of material, any sort of script at this point. And I was auditioning for Gerald Webb, who cast all of the Sharknado movies. And I can't remember if it was for a Sharknado or not. It was something along the lines of like a thriller type of movie. And I actually found it recently the other day because you can go on your Actors Access and look in your archived and find all of your old auditions. So I was like looking through them. It is so bad. And I hope that never sees the light of day. But it's also good to see because I've just seen how much I've grown. And I also did it like literally in my dorm. So it was not good. But I'm grateful for the experience. And I'm honestly surprised at how back then in like 2019, it was so much easier to get big auditions. Like I would say that was a pretty big audition for my first audition, especially with Gerald Webb. Like he's a pretty good casting, pretty well known and great casting director. And yeah, I would say having that as my first audition was pretty cool. But I also was looking back and seeing how many more big SAG auditions I was getting with not even having like a professional headshot, a resume, or clips on my Actors Access, which I just think is so interesting because it kind of goes to show that back before COVID and back before the strikes, this industry was a lot easier, even though it was still super hard. It was a little bit easier to get your foot in the door than it is now because a lot of things have changed since then. So that's very interesting to see. And my first in-person audition was, I think, around COVID as well. Yeah, I think it was around COVID because I remember people wearing masks. But yeah, I actually didn't get the audition at the in-person audition. I mean, I didn't get the part at the in-person audition. She told me that I didn't, but then she ended up giving it to me like later down the road. So I was in the film, but I didn't get it, I guess, day of. I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I can't really remember correctly, but I don't remember being terrified at all. I don't remember being scared. I was just very excited. And also, I think because I was very naive at the time, so I didn't really understand the high stakes then, which is kind of a blessing and a curse because it's good to not have the nerves for big auditions if you don't really know what you're doing, than to know exactly what's going on and who you're in the room with and all of that, and then those nerves coming up. So, yeah, that's how I would say my first auditions went.
Once you get a character, like what is your usual process? Is it more like putting on a mask or perhaps peeling layers of yourself somehow?
I take different approaches to every single role that I get or every single character that I get, but I think majority of the time people don't understand that acting is peeling layers off of yourself and uncovering things about yourself because you have to know fully about yourself and do shadow work and really understand you in order to portray a character and in order to act, especially, when you're acting, you're completely being vulnerable. And that's a skill. That is a skill that you need to learn if you have had past traumas where you struggle with being vulnerable. And a lot of things that we take into our character work and into our roles is things that we have had to work on in the past. So I think that the biggest thing an actor can do to help grow their career is go to therapy and like and peel those layers and really understand themselves to make themselves better at portraying a character and acting in general. So I would say definitely the peeling the layers.
There you go. What would you say that are some of your of the favorite characters, either from films, TV shows that you have seen that you love the most?
Ooh, like that I've just seen on screen.
Hmm.
Anything that Sarah Paulson does, she's my all-time favorite actor. And I actually met her on Broadway because I went to go see her show that she did. It was like a limited, they only were showing it for like a couple months. So I made the trip to New York to see it. And then I met her outside and it was so inspiring. And I told her how inspiring she was and that she inspires my work. And I'm so grateful for that experience. But seriously, anything she does is amazing. In Ratched, she was phenomenal. All of the American Horror Stories, I just love watching her on screen. She's so good and she's so believable and she kills every role she gets. I love her. She's
Hmm.
great.
How would you describe your taste in films and TV shows?
Ooh, okay. So I love mysteries. That's my favorite type of show to watch. Like mystery thriller is definitely my taste. Like I love horror, I love thriller. I'm very much into that space. But being in movies and TV, I really love doing like young adult, coming of age, romance. That's my favorite type of genre and types of characters to portray. And also coming of age films and TV shows are also some of the things that I enjoy as well. But my number one is mysteries,
There you
thriller
go.
mystery, sure. Yeah.
What would you say is your top five of favorite TV shows?
And movies.
Let's start with TV shows. Top
Ooh,
five
okay.
favorite TV shows.
This is so hard. For TV shows, it changes. It changes like, throughout the year, new things come out. Like right now, I'm loving White Lotus and Severance. Always have loved those for years. Top two right there.
Mhm.
And mysteries, as you can tell, they are very mysterious. I've been loving the TV show From, also another mystery. It's like sci-fi mystery. It's so good. It's on MGM Plus, which I think is also now owned by Amazon, so you can watch it on both. Love the mysteries. Oh my goodness. And then other two, okay, let's see. The Sinner on Netflix. That's a really good one. They haven't come out with a new season in a while. I don't know if it's canceled or whatnot, but that's a really good one. Another mystery. Mysteries are just my favorite. And another new show that just came out recently that I just watched was called Teacup, and it's horror sci-fi, and it was so interesting and original. And I'm very excited to see it. They just released the first season and it got renewed. So we'll be seeing a second season, which is really nice. So I would say those are my top five right now, but they do change. Like Schitt's
Okay.
Creek, that's a sixth one. That's a comedy, one of my all-time favorites, but I haven't been watching it recently because watched, like the last time I watched it was like a couple years ago.
And that being said, which show would you recommend me to? Either to me or to those who are either listening to this or watching this. What show would you recommend us for the weekend?
Severance.
Yes, I agree.
Severance 100%. I'm actually at right after this, I'm doing a watch party with my neighbor at my apartment building. And I actually met him on the first day that I moved in here. And yeah, he invited me over and me and my boyfriend over. So we're gonna go watch Severance because it came out today. So
Have you watched Silo?
okay, I just started Silo. Just started it. I'm on episode 4, I think, but I've been
Hmm.
so busy this month. I have not even watched TV except for Severance and White Lotus. But yeah, have you seen Silo?
Yeah, I did watch. What ended up happening is that I watched the first season, loved it. Watched the second one, loved it. But because he ended up in kind of on a cliffhanger, I was like, nope,
Mhm.
that's not. This is not gonna happen. So I ended up buying the books. I was like, I need to know
Oh, it's a
what is gonna
book.
happen. Yeah, yeah. It's three
Yeah.
series. Yeah, it's a 3-1. This is like the two, and
Oh, cool.
yeah, and I ended up buying like the whole saga. It's 3 books, and I was like, I need to read them. I want to know because I mean they confirmed a third and a fourth season, but I was like,
Yep.
hell no, I'm gonna wait for those ones. I need to know what
I know
happens.
it's
I was
so
like,
hard.
gonna buy the books, know the whole thing, and when that happened, I'll be like, cool. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And getting back like a little bit, tell me, how do you protect, like your own emotions when you're constantly digging into someone else pain or trauma for this character that you
Mhm.
have been working on?
That's a really good question. And I think it's still something that I am working on. But aftercare is really important, especially when you are doing really emotional roles where you have to be crying, screaming, and fear, you're terrified. Aftercare is really important for an actor to have some sort of grounding exercise that they can do, or an activity that they can do, or a place that they can go just to kind of decompress and kind of get back into reality, especially when you're doing a lot of character work and your character is a very deep, emotional, complex character. You do have to have ways where you can kind of escape that because it can be easy to get stuck there. So I think I'm still working on my exact aftercare activities and seeing what works for me. But there's also different approaches that you can take to getting very emotional, especially with using a lot of imagination or sense memory type of exercises that can help a little bit rather than you digging in and taking trauma from your own life, which I think is a little bit of an unhealthy way to access emotions and get you to the point where you want to be, because it's not healthy for us to relive our traumas, and it's not healthy for us to think of things that we already, went through, got over, did a lot of work to not forget about, but, heal from it. And having to bring that back up can be really hard. So I think it's unhealthy to use trauma as a way of accessing emotion, which is why imagination and sense memory are things that I personally use
Hmm.
for
Okay.
me.
Okay. And do you
But
have like a
everyone's different.
specific, yeah, of course. And do you have
Yeah.
like a specific technique, or ritual, let's say, when you were about to kind of breaking character to be like, okay, this is it, I'm done, and then return to be the real you, let's say.
Yeah, music really helps me with that. I love making playlists for my characters, even characters that I'm auditioning for or like that I'm trying to manifest getting. I'll make playlists for them. That is such a fun way for me to just get into a character's mindset, even if it's not a very emotional role, or at the time they're not having to be very emotional. Music is a really, really great way for me because it also helps me visualize things and imagine things. Music is my number one technique for that, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And that being said, what would you say is your top 10 of favorites songs right now? Like your top 10, the songs that you just love the most.
Oh my gosh, 10? Okay, let me think. The song that comes to my head, love this song, Mr. Brightside by The Killers.
Okay.
Love that song. I love anything by Paramore. So good.
Okay.
I feel like I change my favorite song every single day. Messy is a song that I'm obsessed with right now. I don't remember who it's by. I can't think of the name. I'm bad at like knowing the artists' names who sing the songs. that I really like because sometimes I like one song by like an artist and I haven't really checked out a lot of their other music yet. Um, oh my goodness. Anything by the Jonas Brothers, like their old stuff that I really like. I seriously just like any genre and any type of music. So that's why it's so hard because I just listen to everything under the sun. What's it? SZA, love her music. I'm seriously blanking right now. I don't know why. I should pull up my Spotify and see what I've been listening to.
You know, it happens, and it's sometimes interesting because hours later, or at least I'm this type of guy that hours later I'm like I started to mention quickly like this. You know what I mean? Like when they ask me on spot, probably I'd be like what? But then hours later I'm like I could have gone through with this one, that one. You know, you start to mention like I don't know like 50 just in one. You know what I mean? So yeah, it happens. I know
Yeah.
what you mean.
Like I know right when I get off of this, I'm gonna think of all 10 immediately. It's just gonna happen. And I'm gonna be like, great, why couldn't I do that?
Which song do you say that could describe more about your journey at this point?
Probably like Don't Stop Believing. That's a good
Classic.
one because
Yeah.
yeah, it's a classic and it's true. I never stop believing in myself. I always have the hustle to keep going and have the hope and the drive. So, yeah, that title of that song.
Okay. I'll take it. I'll take it. And you know, the acting world can be, you know, a huge roller coaster, right? With ups and downs and ups and downs and all of those crazy things that happen. So, how do you stay grounded when everything feels chaotic, basically?
That's a good question because right now everything is chaotic and the industry is in a really weird place. And there's a lot of uncertainties. I mean, there's always uncertainties, but especially now, which things are a little bit slow. It is picking up, but I would say the one thing that keeps me grounded is having things that I really like to be doing outside of acting. And this is something that I have struggled with for a really long time because for a while I held a lot of my self-value in my career, and I still do a little bit for sure, and in my work. So when I wasn't finding a lot of success or there was a lot of downtime with my bookings, it would it would affect me a lot because I would think that as my self-worth, but having things that you really enjoy doing and a career outside of acting, not necessarily a career, but like a job that you have that you really like, or hobbies that you really love outside of acting, and things that you do for self-care, like taking care of your mind and your body and not focusing so much on your acting business can be really beneficial. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I definitely still struggle with really going all in on my career. I'm very much a workaholic, so it's something that I've had to balance a lot.
Okay. And outside of acting, like what are some of your hobbies that you have in order for you to kind of relax and be like outside from the messiness that is happening outside?
I love crafts. Like I love making art, doing crafts. I actually sell some of my art at vendor markets here in Atlanta. So that's really fun. I have one coming up next weekend. So I've been working on my crafts for that, which has been really good. That's something that keeps me grounded. But ever since I have been selling my stuff, it's also kind of made me into a perfectionist. So instead of doing it as much as a hobby, it's kind of turned into something that I feel like I have to be doing right now. So I'm trying to find a balance with that as well. And also being outside, I love exploring new places in nature. And as it's been getting nicer, winter is finally over where I am right now. So I've really just been taking advantage of that. I'm outside every single day, going to explore new places, nature preserves, hikes, rivers, woods, parks, all of that. Like just being in nature really grounds me. I just love looking at like moss. I don't know why moss for me is like just really grounding. I love moss.
Epic. I love it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't love the chance to be outside in the nature
Yeah.
for a while? You know what I mean? It's like I do. I do agree on that. It's kind of the perfect place, and especially, well, at least to me, if it's raining like a little bit, oh, then it's like this is on spot now. Just a little bit of rain. You just walk there for a little bit, and it's
Oh,
it's
rainy
so
days.
it's so funny because like usually when you are kind of taking a break, right? When you take those breaks because so you can kind of relax, it's usually when inspiration hits you the most, or you get like this
Yes.
crazy idea of the sun, and you're like, okay, so I can do this, and that. So I do. So with that, I am a true. I mean, I always said that if you want to take a break, take it. It's yet again, it's part of the whole experience for you to kind of be be away from this thing that you are doing, so you can kind of
100%.
regroup. And at the same time, as I was saying, it's when inspiration can hit you the most, or can get you the idea to create something, or you can on the along the way you can meet someone who then turns out that that one can connect you with somebody else, and then boom, you got
Yeah.
booked into a project or things like that. You know what I mean? So.
Mhm.
Yeah. Epic.
Definitely.
Epic.
The breaks are so important, and that's something that I'm also working on giving myself more time to actually like take a break and relax and not be so caught up in the work. So yeah, breaks breaks are so important, especially for the imagination, the inspiration, and the creativity.
Totally. Okay. Okay. And what do you think? It's one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about actors.
People have about actors. Ooh, that's a great question. I think so. Going back to a little bit to what I was saying earlier, where peeling back the layers of yourself, I think a lot of people don't understand that that's like a huge part of your career is learning about yourself, learning about your emotions, learning about how to access things in yourself. Every single actor is different, and every single human being on the planet has had a completely different life experience. So every single person is different, and I would say knowing that you have to kind of peel back the layers of yourself is an important part of your acting, and a lot of people don't know that. And also a lot of people don't understand who aren't, in the industry or know people who are, how long it takes and how much time there is at the beginning of your career where you are working so hard for free with no results whatsoever because you're just so dedicated to it. And this comes up a lot because especially when you're at like a family gathering or something, or you're meeting a new person and you're talking about acting or you're talking about your career, and they ask, oh, like, have you been in anything I've seen? Or, oh, like they respond like, oh, like you're an act, like, what does that mean? And I just think a lot of people think immediately that if you're an actor, like you're automatically a series regulars on like these big shows or in movies that they've seen or things that they can watch immediately. But when you're starting out in your career and when you're emerging, you're doing a lot of unpaid things. You're doing tons of indie projects, student films, you're making your own stuff, things that a lot of people don't see at the beginning. And while it's something every actor should be extremely proud of because that's what gets them to where they are, it tends to be hard to make that understandable for people who aren't in the industry and for people who are don't really have a lot of knowledge on like what goes into building a career like this. So I would say that's a big misconception about actors is that like they automatically, if you're an actor, you're famous.
Hmm.
But that's not how it works. And there's a lot of actors who just do it because they love it as a hobby.
Because at the end of the day, it is your passion, and of course that type of success eventually will come. But as you were saying, you need to first earn your stripes. You need to work on it, and then eventually it's gonna happen. Which is so funny because, like, whenever we will see like this new big project, right? And then we see an actor or an actress that nobody has seen, and then the typical catchphrase come, which is success overnight. And then when you
Right.
check
Yeah.
when you check on that actor worked for a bit, you're like, no, I mean that guy has been working for almost 12 years, or even
Yep.
20 or something like
He's
that.
just been little in little things or co-stars or day players on movies, but they've been in it. Yeah, overnight success really only happens if you're like a nepo baby or something, or you're really, really, really lucky, like the girl who just booked the new Elle Woods in Legally Blonde. They're making the remake of that, and they did an open call for it. And I mean, she has done a couple things, but I would say she is like a definition of a lucky overnight success because her whole world is going to change and I'm so excited for her. I think her name's Lexi, but yeah, she should like play the lottery because the fact that she booked that from an open call and she's only been in a couple things is crazy.
Totally. So I guess we will see. How much have you matured since you starting your acting career? Like how much you feel that you have grown up?
Yeah. Well, when I started acting, I was 18 years old around there. So even just being an 18-year-old and if getting to know herself and exploring her career, I've definitely grown a lot just because I was so young when I started out. I mean, I'm still very young now. It hasn't been that long, but yeah, just I've definitely grown a lot. I've matured into who I am, not only as an actor, but as a person and a human. And I've definitely grown a lot in my craft as I continue training. And I think because I've trained at so many different places and I've trained so many different techniques, I think that's helped me a lot because I have a lot of things in my toolkit that I can pull out when I need to, which I think is very, very valuable. I do think that a lot of actors do just stick with like one coach, which is totally fine. Like if that is what they love and that is how they find themselves growing, that's great. But I do think it is important to, take a Meisner and then maybe take improv. Well, definitely take improv, not maybe. And, all of these different techniques like viewpoints and there's so many different classes that you should be taking, and because of that, that's also made me grow. And just being an actor in general starting out when I was 18 has really given me a lot of confidence and a lot of people skills and public speaking skills, so that it's helped me in so many ways just outside of acting. Just even being a human being, it's helped, and it's really made me dig deep into myself too, which I really value.
There you go. Plus you have become more badass. Just saying.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a badass now.
There you go. I love it. Epic. Okay. Okay. And tell me how you handle rejection. We nobody likes being rejected. So how
Ugh.
you handle that side and at the same time critiques. Critiques happen all the time, and especially when you're like putting yourself out there, hate comes. It's
Oh yeah.
something that comes inevitably. So how you stay, yeah. So how you don't let yourself being hooked to these toxic thoughts, this toxic comment, like all of that crap.
Yeah, I feel like with rejection, I'm pretty immune to rejection nowadays. It's been a lot of years of no's and putting myself out there and getting completely rejected. So I'm pretty used to that now, and I would say that it really only hurts here and there when I'm like very, very attached to a project and I get through auditions, I go to callbacks and like there's a chance I could book it and then I don't. That makes me that hurts a lot. But like that does happen a lot, but there are some roles that I'm like, okay, yeah, I get why I didn't get that. When it's just a role that you really, really connect with and you relate to the character so much and it's just so much, the character's so much like you, or you're so good at portraying that type of character, and when you get rejected from that, that definitely that it stings. It stings for sure. But I'm way better at it now. I'm way more used to it, but I allow myself to grieve it for a little bit when it does sting. And I think that's really important. But critiques, I want critiques. I want all the critiques I can get. That's why I love acting class. I want to know what's working and what's not working. I don't want to just continue acting and continue trying things if they're not working or if I'm not being believable. So I personally love critiques. It's hard sometimes, especially when you get critiques that are maybe about like things that you're working on with yourself, such as if like an acting coach says, they can see that you're struggling being vulnerable or something like that. Like that, those are harder critiques for me than saying like, oh, that moment wasn't believable or something like that, because that's like inner work that needs to be done rather than like craft. So yeah, I love critiques though. I want to keep growing and I want to keep learning. So I'll take all the critiques I can get, and constructive criticism is important.
There you go.
And it's not good if you're just told all the time that you're really good, because then you're not going to grow, you know?
I mean, at the end, I also think that it's important to see where those critiques come from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they actually come from a place of love, then sure, listen to him because
Mhm.
it's true. I mean, sometimes you might be doing something that could be wrong, let's say, or perhaps you could improve into something, things like that. And usually, like those type of comments can give you like another perspective, which it actually helps. But there's also this type of comments which is basically nonsense, and of course, that with time you kind of get better to it. You kind of let them
Yeah.
slide easier for you and be like whatever, and you just keep moving forward. Of course, that is easier said than done, and not gonna lie, at first might hit you like a little bit, but as I was saying, like that is I do think that one of the things about like putting yourself out there, that those type of things will come, and that's okay. That's just part of the whole experience. It's up to you to decide if you kind of, I try to see those things as kind of tests. That life will be testing you every now and then to see if you are still up for the challenge, or maybe it wasn't just meant to be for you, and that's just the way it is, and that's fine, right? So, as I was saying, I do think that it's very important to kind of listen where those type of things come from, and rejection, that's
Yeah.
just the way it is. You can't please everybody, and it's not personal. It wasn't just meant to be at that point, and that's just the way it is.
Definitely. And there is a huge difference between critiquing from someone like an acting coach and then critiquing from a stranger on the internet who maybe has bad intentions and is maybe, trolling or being hateful. Yeah, hate comments, hate those. I don't really have a huge social media presence, so I don't experience that on a daily level. But there have been times where I've put myself out there on the internet, gotten some hate comments, and have been like, okay, this is not fun. But I do understand that the internet is full of people who hate themselves too and are projecting online through a screen where no one knows who they are and they're anonymous. And that's definitely a huge issue on social media. And also, I love this quote. It's don't take criticism from someone that you don't want to be like. I believe that's the quote, something like that. Like, you don't ever want to take criticism from someone who you don't admire or someone who you wouldn't even want to be like. Like, I wouldn't take criticism from someone who has never acted before, or, like there are certain people who I am not going to take any kind of constructive criticism or critiques from because, they're not where I want to be right now.
Totally. I mean, that's, as you
Yeah.
were saying, like part of the whole social media thing, that since now it's very open, everybody thinks that they have that they deserve to speak whatever they want, which somehow, okay, might be true, but yet again, I mean, if you're going to be a dick about it, just don't. Nobody wants
Yeah.
to know, like, all of it's just, I do think that social media, like, the good thing about social media as well is that the positive impact you can actually send to someone, or the positive vibes you can send, I think that actually helps way more than just a guy saying just some insults, or some random things because they didn't
Yes.
like the performance of a actor or whatever. I do think that whenever that happens, it's like, okay, you didn't like it, that's fine,
Yep.
and it's just the way it is. We live in a free world, and I do think that the more we get the chance to be like, if I didn't like something, that's fine, I will not consume it, problem solved. And if I like it, sure, I will consume more of it, and that's just the way it is, and be moving on with my life, because I do think that sometimes those type of guys, they will waste. I mean, if they will get the chance to actually use the time, instead of trolling, to using it to something positive, they might achieve what they actually want in life. But you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Yeah.
It's tricky sometimes.
It is tricky. It is tricky. The internet is a tricky place.
Totally, totally. And
Yeah.
tell me, let's say, right, years from now, like, what do you want people to feel about your work, right? What do you want people to think about when they see you years from now on the multiple thousand projects you're gonna be in here? I mean, we all know that, of course. So tell me, what some of the, like, what will be like the legacy, let's say, that you want to deliver.
I really want people to see my hard work in my acting and see that I have a lot of training under my belt, that I've worked really hard, that they can see my good work, that I'm believable on screen. And also, if they have seen any of my old stuff, that I hope that they can see how far that I've come and how much I've grown. And actors just continuously grow and continuously learn and continuously get better through the years. And honestly, not even through training, just through life as well. Once we experience new life experiences, it translates into our work as well. So I hope that my legacy that I leave is that people see talent and people see the work that I've put in to be good on screen. And one day I will hear those words.
There you go. I mean, I'm gonna basically drop the mic because you're just killing it here. So, um,
Thank
yeah, epic. Now, now I discover why I'm figuring out why you're badass here. I'm like, I'm getting it now. I'm getting these vibes. Just saying, and like in general, like what motivates you? We all have those days that we just want to
Yeah.
quit. It's inevitable, happens to all of us, regardless in whatever we do. So, on this case, how you stay positive or focus on a day that, let's say that you're not doing so well.
Yeah, this is hard. This is a really hard thing to do, especially when you're not seeing a ton of success at the moment or something. But what keeps me going is one, I have been at this for so long and I'm not the type to give up. So that's something that keeps me going. I'm like, all right, I've come this far. I'm not quitting. I'm gonna keep going. Scientifically, if I just stay committed and I work hard, like something's gonna work out. So that kind of keeps me motivated for sure. And also the fact that this career in general is a lifelong career. And there are going to be months, years, even weeks where I might not book anything. I might not be seeing any growth in my career. My career might be stagnant. And I think that coming to terms with the fact that this career is lifelong and it's not going to happen like that is also motivating because I'm like, okay, it's okay. Like it's gonna happen just right now. It's a little stagnant, but that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that I'm bad. It doesn't mean that I'm not gonna book a role that I really want. It just means that my time at this moment hasn't come yet, or the next big thing is just waiting for me and something will happen. There's always new roles, always new things being written, and there's always opportunities for you to book something that you really want. Even if you feel like it hasn't come yet, it will. It will come.
Okay, I like it. This is epic. And what advice, would you give to those who want to start either in acting or, want to follow like basically they just want to start following their journey?
My biggest advice is being really consistent with it. When I first started out, I was like half in and half out of the career. And also because I was in college at the time too, so that's obviously a little bit different. So I kind of had to focus more full time on my school just to graduate. But I would say understanding that in order to make this your reality, if this is your dream, if acting is your number one dream and you cannot see yourself doing anything else, you need to sit down and you need to be like, okay, how can I make this sustainable full time for me? Because there's no half in, half out in this career. You can't be like, oh, I'm just doing it as a hobby, unless that's what you want. If you want to just be doing it as a hobby and picking up roles here and there, that's totally fine. That is okay. And that's great. But if you want this to be your full time career, you need to really be serious with yourself. And you need to be like, okay, how can I make this work? What sort of survival job can I have? What job can I get that's flexible in order for me to pursue this at the same time? How am I going to financially support myself during this? Am I going to need roommates? Where am I going to live? Because I will say it is harder living in a market that's not a giant market like LA and New York or Atlanta, because I did live in New Hampshire and Boston for a long time and I was working in that area for a while. And it just is harder to get opportunities that you want if you're not in the markets that you want to be working in. And one is because of the community. When you're actually living in the places like New York, LA, and Atlanta, or even a smaller market hub like New Mexico or even Boston, you won't be surrounded by the people who are going to motivate you and to keep you going. Like I was saying earlier, community is the biggest thing in this career. The people who you know and the people that you surround yourself with in the industry are really going to help you get to where you want to be. So having that community of people is necessary. And you might have an easier time finding that community and finding the people who can help you grow, not just in your craft, but in the career in the bigger markets, I will say. Just from my personal experience as well. This might be different for everyone else, just like every single advice in this industry goes person to person. But from my experience and from what I know and from what I've seen, living in an area that has some sort of film industry is definitely going to help you and going to propel your career faster than if you were in an area like New Hampshire, or I can't think of any other place right now because that's just where I lived. But yeah, that's my advice. Like sitting down, figuring out how you can do this full time, even if you're not like actively working on acting full time, like that's totally fine. But as long as you allow yourself to have the space and the time to work on your career and your craft while being financially stable and while living in an area that you can make a great network, then you can do it. But my long story short, don't be half in, half out. You want to be all in if you want this to be your career. And it is hard. So you got to kind of sit down with yourself and plan it all out.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll tell you what, if I ever become an actor, and if at some point I win something, or I even write my memoirs, I'll be mentioning you in my thank you speech. So,
oh, thank you. I'll mention you.
Sounds like a plan. I love it. And you know what? My last question, so we can all enjoy and relax here. So here it is. What do you think that could be the best title for this episode?
The best title for this episode? Ooh, like maybe Madison's success story or Madison's acting advice. Why am I blanking so hard? One. Okay, what's yours?
Life, music, and acting with Madison.
Sure, yeah, that's perfect.
Sounds like a franchise to me.
Sounds like a plan. I love it.
There you go. And you know what? At the end, what can I say? You know, the fact that you're doing what makes you happy, you know, that's really cool. We all know, of course, that following what makes you happy, like actually start something from scratch, can sometimes be a pain in the butt. But hey, you're making it happen. You're showing it, like you're actually showing out there that is possible. You know, that is really cool. And one of the things that I do love the most about interviewing actors is that sure, you can bring us cool characters, cool stories, and all of that. But between the lines, you're also showing us that dreams are possible. And I do think that type of message is super well. Yeah, it's something that we kind of just need, you know, especially right now in this crazy era. The fact that we can rely on people like you who are just doing things for the fun of it, you know, and just things because they love it. That's pretty cool. So, I mean, I'm super sure that our next conversation will be about the multiple thousands projects you've been here. That's inevitable. And when that happens, I'll be like, I knew it, you know.
I'm looking forward to it for sure.
For sure. And I do want to thank also those who stayed the whole episode. Let us know what you think in the comments below, but also in the description below. By this point, come on, you should know why Madison is super badass. So let's follow her. Let's share some love, but also let's make her viral. Hashtag Team Madison. And again, thank you for making this happen. Have an incredible upcoming weekend. Keep shining out there. Keep kicking ass. And I'll definitely be seeing you in the next one.
Thank you so much, Dan, and everyone who watched. I had a great time today, and I'm looking forward to being here again.